Diplomatic sources on Barbados tell CBS News correspondent Sandy Gilmore that some 50 U.S. Marines have arrived at the Bridgetown airport, only 100 miles from Grenada. A U.S. diplomat told Gilmore that an evacuation of hundreds of Americans on Grenada has not been ruled out. The military took over Grenada last week in a coup after killing the Marxist prime minister. On the record, U.S. officials charge there is circumstantial evidence linking Iran to the Beirut bombing. They'll go no further with this charge, but off the record, as David Martin reports, evidence presented about an Iranian connection appears much more solid.
CBS News has learned that as recently as September, U.S. intelligence intercepted communications between the Iranian embassy in Beirut and the Iranian Foreign Ministry in Tehran, indicating an attack against American forces and installations in Lebanon was being discussed. Exactly when, where, and how was not clear, but intelligence analysts now link those intercepted messages to Sunday's carnage at Beirut airport. U.S. intelligence believes the bombing was masterminded by this man, Abu Musawi, a renegade Lebanese Shiite Muslim loyal to Ayatollah Khomeini. Musawi's followers have claimed responsibility for the April bombing of the U.S. embassy in Beirut and the sniper attacks against the Marines. American sources say Musawi and his followers have known contacts with the Iranian intelligence officers assigned to the Iranian embassy in Beirut and travel regularly to Iran. His headquarters are behind Syrian lines in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley. To some in the intelligence community, the evidence against Musawi is more than just circumstantial. So why, they ask, weren't better precautions taken to protect the Marines? Following the April bombing of the embassy, Pentagon experts recommended major changes in security at American installations in Lebanon. Some were made at the sites where American soldiers trained the Lebanese army, but very little was done at the Marine compound. The kinds of security precautions needed to stop an attack like Sunday's are well known. This barrier in Berlin, for instance, forces cars to zigzag so they can't gather speed to crash a gate. At the airport in Beirut, none of this was done, and Congress wants to know why.
And unfortunately, the security, in my judgment, was inadequate, and this terrible tragedy occurred.
And Congress also wants to know if the Pentagon properly planned for a medical emergency in Beirut.
With Israel located close by and other countries close by, having to fly all the way to Germany raises certain questions.
To answer some of the questions, a badly shaken Marine Commandant, P.X. Kelly, left today for Beirut. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
In Tehran, the Iranian Foreign Ministry today denied any involvement in the Beirut bombing. It said that what happened yesterday was an example of, quote, the resistance of the people of Lebanon. Shiite Muslim groups sympathetic to or controlled by Iran have been accused by U.S. officials in recent sniper attacks on the Marines. Most of these groups are centered in the ancient Lebanese town of Baalbek in the heart of the Syrian-controlled Bekaa Valley. Alan Pizzi managed to get into that dangerous area and filed this report.
The Iranian flag flies over a barracks above Baalbek, where several hundred Iranian regular troops and reportedly some Revolutionary Guards are based. That would seem to lend credence to American claims of an Iranian connection to the bombings. But Islamic leaders here back up Iran's denials of involvement and say Washington is indulging in hysteria. A pro-Iranian militia leader here said there was no basis for the American accusations, but he added that he expected more attacks against the Marines. They have no business here, the leader said, and the Islamic Revolution does not fear American retaliation. The Islamic leaders say the group that claimed responsibility, the Free Islamic Revolutionary Movement, has too many contradictions about it, such as its reported support for both Marxism and Islam. In this atmosphere of charge and countercharge, establishing where the responsibility for Sunday's bombing lies may prove to be impossible. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Baalbek.